Thanks to Fidelma, Claire, and Sonia for organising today. We're going into it. Thank you for having me. So I'm just going to talk to you about feasibility. So does anyone know what it is before I start?
What's Chloe?
You want to answer? You're the nearest to me.
I'll let you do that.
So just today I'm going to go through what it is in the clinical research environment and how we go about bringing the trial to CRFG. So feasibility is the assessment of whether we can run the study at site. So you've got to take into account your logistical, financial, and regulatory factors. So a well-conducted feasibility can identify potential barriers in the planning process, optimize resource allocation, enhance patient recruitment, and just overall execute the study. So as Veronica mentioned, they're becoming increasingly complex, our clinical trials. So the need for multi-center studies, diverse patient populations, and strict regulatory requirements means that feasibility is crucial when opening a study, just to get everything in order. So I just listed the 5 components here that are critical and you need to consider when opening a study at site. Just done a quick diagram here, so I'm going to go through the bits with you. So recruitment potential. So do you have the population of patients at your site? Do you have the investigator that sees these patients in clinic? Do you have enough to meet study criteria for the population? So your site infrastructure then, assess the site's experience with similar trials in the area, evaluate the qualifications of the investigator, the research team, and the support staff. Can the investigator commit to research along with his or her clinical commitments? So staff expertise then. Investigators, are they familiar with the disease state or treatment modality? Is the staff on the research team, have they conducted these trials in this area before? So they're aware of protocol requirements, reducing the learning curve. Regulatory support then, are they compliant? And have they been in the past? So ensure that the site can obtain ethical approval. Your site commitment then. So a committed site typically has investigators and staff who are passionate about the study and can drive higher levels of engagement and effort throughout the trial. And then commitment often translates into allocating adequate time and resources to the study to ensure recruitment is there, connection is powerful, and patient care is paramount. So geographical location then is important where your site is located. So for patient convenience, considering transportation, and be aware of local guidelines, restrictions that could impact trial execution. And historically then, so look at your site track record in terms of recruitment, data quality, adherence to timelines in past studies, and assess the level of enthusiasm and commitment of the PI and their team. So collaboration then, you must consider past interactions and collaborations with the study team and sponsor, and ensure the site is open to ongoing forms of communication. So patient recruitment then, so sites must have a clear understanding of demographics of their patient population. So you must include age, gender, ethnicity, health status. So knowledge of the disease prevalence in the local area is also important. So your inclusion and exclusion criteria are listed in all your protocols. So you must align with these in order to be above board. And the inclusion criteria, if they're too restrictive, your recruitment is going to be challenging. So make sure they're not killing you at site for being too narrow. Your strategies then, so experienced sites often have established recruitment strategies that can be quickly adapted for new studies. And strategies like community engagement, educational outreach, social media, or digital outreach, or via referral networks. So incentives for participation. So it's to be important that it's not coercive in nature. So covering costs for patients, so it's less burden for the patient attending site. Providing participants with access to new treatments or therapies might be an incentive. They may not have access to this outside of the research. And offering flexible and virtual appointments can make it accessible for patients, so it's not too hard to partake. And engagement then and retention. So clearly defined criteria can enhance participant understanding and commitment, and also a good informed consent process where everything has gone through with the patient so they know it's coming, they're likely to stay in the study. Maybe personalizing it to each participant. So if they have a dedicated member of the site team dealing with them all the time, so it's not 3 or 4 people in contact, so more of a relationship built with the patient. Tracking and metrics, then it's good to just keep an eye on how you're doing in terms of enrollment and recruitment, and measuring the conversion rate of inquiries to site and actual enrollment on the study. And keep in mind the screening and recruitment timelines for studies, because you do have to, I suppose, meet screening timelines. And then any barriers that you may face. So a lot of patients mightn't be aware of what research is going on in the unit and might misunderstand the topics, and transportation or logistical issues could deter patients from joining. Regulatory requirements then. So just overall adherence to regulatory frameworks to ensure patient safety, ethical conduct, and the overall integrity of the study. So all studies must undergo review from IRB or ethics committee, and it ensures study is ethically sound and that the participants' rights and welfare are protected. The informed consent process then is most important, and it's mandated that participants give explicit informed consent before enrolling onto a trial, and the sites must have a process in place to carry out this informed consent. So as Veronica has mentioned, you must register your protocol. So clinicaltrials.gov or the EU CTO or the new system. So it's a requirement, it is significant, and it is best practice to register your protocol. So it just allows for transparency and accountability for your researchers and patients. GDPR then is a big thing, so Caroline will know all about data protection. So you'll hear about that later. So it's given the sensitive nature of health data, you obviously have to have this guideline in place, and for anything conducted in the EU, it is a guideline we have to follow. Reporting then to regulatory agencies. So throughout your study, you'll have to report your annual kind of interim reports, and your final report at the end of the study must be submitted. You must also consider your training of your site team. So does everyone have GCP training? So this governs the conduct and reporting of clinical trials at site. So audit and inspections, Kate will be talking about it later, just can be internal, external, or regulatory. So won't go into too much on that. Cultural and local considerations, then just familiarize yourself with local requirements, as they may not be the same. Some may differ from international standards. Each country may have different guidelines governing their clinical trials. So budget and resources, I'll just touch on this because I know Grania is going into detail on it later. So a well-structured budget ensures that necessary resources are available for successful study execution. So you've got your direct costs, indirect costs, and patient-related costs. So direct costs is your salaries, your utilities at site, indirect, your overheads, I suppose, to manage the study, and patient-related costs. Do you have a budget for patients to expense their travel and reimbursements? Data management, then there must be a budget for user acceptance testing, designing your plates, data analysis, all the bits, they need to be accounted for, and PJ and Alberto will be touching on that later. So on-site remote monitoring, and Alexei will be speaking later too. He's our on-site monitor in CRFG. So just to account for monitoring in your budget. Contingency plan, I suppose, is there just in case stuff crops up that's unforeseen. Always just good to have in case in the budget. Funding sources then are usually pharmaceutical, industry studies, academic, clinical research networks, usually the bulk of funding for your studies. And nearly there. Timeline just to consider your study phase and milestones. So Veronica's already touched on, so you've phase 1 to 4. So each study phase is a different objective and milestone to meet, and each one guides the research process. So your patient recruitment timeline is important to consider. Fidelma has got caught before with tight timelines. Do you remember the study last year? Screening caught us, and we ended up having a contract delay, and screening timeline closed in, and we only got 1 patient on the study, which is unfortunate, but things just happen. So just to be aware, to ensure that overall it meets the recruitment timeline. monitoring and auditing schedules. So a well-defined schedule outlines when the monitor or auditors are on site, which activities occur, and what will be reviewed. Data management plan is also important to consider. So if you've user acceptance testing, creating your plates, creating your database, all of that has to be accounted for. Your unforeseen circumstances, I mean, everything in all walks of life, it happens, things are unforeseen, but in our research, you might have a delay in your contract, recruitment challenges, participant dropouts, staff turnover, even you just can't foresee these things. So just to have a plan for those. And then communication with stakeholders. So in this instance, stakeholders is your investigator, sponsor, regulatory bodies. So just effective communication with all of the above, just to ensure all expectations are met and collaborative efforts are there going forward. And final reporting and publication. So I suppose when the study is over, final analysis of study data, preparing your manuscript, choosing your journal, it's all quite busy at the end when you're getting published. And I just have the CRFG study application form that I have here. Just to just run through this one. Sorry, no, it's not moving. But it's just what CRFG management team review. So you put your details in that, your study, your PI, sub-Is, budget per patient, your timelines. So you just put as much info as you can into that, send it to the study startup specialist, which is now me, and we bring it to management level and get the study reviewed so it can be run on site. So it's very helpful just for management to see what's needed to run everything. And I just have a few useful contacts. So study startup is myself, and we have oncology and hematology specific emails. So Veronica's team, we have Katja that's organizing all of that. So if you have anything related to oncology or hematology trials, you can contact them. Then my colleague Alexi is looking after the NCTO feasibility group. So anything external that may come to us, is might find an investigator at site to run the study. So any queries you can direct to either of us three. Thank you. Outside at the break for questions, and you can email me on SSUS. All right, thank you.